welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the RDFL Footy Show for another week. Back inside this week, which is good, nice and warm. So we're getting out of that winterness, and I suppose here bringing you all of the RDFL action from the last 7 days, and of course looking at this week's round 9 fixtures. Sean Kelly's my name. Joining me as always, my co-host, the great Shaun and Yeendy. Welcome back, mate.
Thanks, mate. Great to be indoors after being out at Bloomdale last week, where it was blooming windy. We're here, it's raining outside, so that's good. Yeah.
Yes, no, we're doing this quite nicely indeed. Time to jump straight into it, though. Have a look at the talking points, and talking point number one is probably the biggest offensive explosion we've seen in quite some time in the RDFL. Diggers Rest kicking 48 goals on the weekend, 14 goal kickers, 10 multiples, and Brandy Kilty kicking 12.
Yeah, sensational performance there, and they really saved their best to last. They kicked 15 goals in the final term, and unfortunately that's where Rockbank kicked their one and only goal, so they kind of got overshadowed there. They just seemed to get better. But BJ in top form there. When we were watching the scores from our game, we were going, well, who's kicking all the goals? We were thinking surely Smales, Brent Tuckey. But no, it was Mr. Kilty bobbing up and kicking 12 and really establishing himself as one of the premier gun midfielders in the comp.
Yeah, he did very nicely indeed. Obviously, as we know, Rockbank's struggling a little bit this year and probably didn't expect it to be that big given some of the other results, but well done to Diggers Rest on really getting a good percentage boost that they may need, of course, coming towards the end of the season when spaces in that top 3 and top 4 are going to be at a premium again.
Yeah, spot on too. And a big thumbs up to young Chrissy Lawton, who's tied up with the Calder Cannons. Didn't play in the side this past week. He dropped into the senior team. Good young ruckman coming through. Kicked 7 goals, and I've umpired Chris a lot over the journey. And just a terrific young kid coming through, and it's exciting to see his development. Even when he goes down to play senior footy, he still turns it on.
Doing well done, Chris, and great job by Diggers Rest. Talking point number 2, and going the other way with this one, obviously been very impressed with Wallen during season 2016 so far. Got some good wins under their belt, sitting inside the top 6, but what they showed on the weekend is that they're struggling to win away from Green Hill Reserve. They went down and faced Riddell, which is a team that if they want to do anything beyond the first week of the finals this year, they have to beat teams like this. Not only did they not beat them, they got dusted up quite nicely. 95, or what was it? Yeah, 97 points in the end.
Yeah, disappointing effort by them, and they did start the game strongly as well. They kicked 2 of the first 3 goals of the contest, and it looked like they were definitely going to be up and about. But you get James Nolan pushing forward, and we know he's been playing a lot of the season in the ruck in the absence of Braden Allen. So obviously he goes forward. He kicks 8. Brian Ruffle kicks 4. Your 2 gun forwards combined for 12. I don't think no matter how good your defence is, they can't shut down those 2 when they're firing.
Yeah. No, and I think you're dead right there. Having 2 tall forwards like that, and obviously we know how good James is in the air with his hands and rough on the lead. No one gets anywhere near him, and you're right. Once those 2 are up and going, they're very, very hard to stop.
And Wallen are probably maybe a bit more one-dimensional when it comes to going forward as well. Sam Rexheppy seems to be their go-to guy. We did see him against Masson a few weeks back, and he kicked the first 3 goals for their point of view. So they probably need to look at more avenues of goals, but it's the question mark is though, can they win a game away from home? I think that's going to be a very tough, big testing point for them, because they're not going to play the grand final at Wallen this year. Let's be honest. So they generally get week 1, but and
it's normally a qualifying final. It's normally 1 versus 2, so they need to really get up the ladder if they want that.
Exactly. So it's hard for them, but fingers crossed. Though they've obviously got Diggers Rest this week, which we'll be talking about later on. They've got Masson later on in the season, and they've got Rockbank. So they've got a couple of tough ones that they need to test themselves at home anyway.
Yeah, they do indeed. Watch this space with great interest to see how Wallen go for the remainder of the season. Talking point number 3, whilst we've spoken about goals this week, obviously a fair bit. John Kent, the reigning leading goal kicker here in the RDFL, held goalless on the weekend for just the second time in recent memory as Rupertswood gave Lansfield a nice little dust-up.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes to show that if opposition for backmen do shut down Kent, then that really dries up the supply. I'm not sure if he played, but I don't think Miles Dorman had much of an influence either. And but Will Brock had to sort of step up and he kicked 3 goals. So that was good for them, but you shut Kent out of the game, and he is an incredible goal kicker. And it obviously goes to show a big difference there. And Rupers would really share the goals around as well. And good to see Paddy Scanlon get in there. He kicked a couple and had a really good game from all reports.
Yeah, Rupert's going along okay at the moment. We've crossed the halfway mark of the season now, so got to the top of that hill. Start going down this week with round 9 in the RDFL, and what an interesting week of football this is going to be. Starting at the Gilbert Gordon Oval this weekend, Woodend Heskett taking on Broadford, a Broadford team that all of a sudden are well and truly back in town.
Well, they've won 4 of the last 4 games, so they've won 4 in a row. They're cruising at the moment after starting 0-4. They're really up and about, and this is going to be an exciting game for them because I had the pleasure of running on the GGO in a Masters game over the weekend, and the surface is...
Hang on. Running as in umpiring or running as in playing?
Running as umpiring.
I was going to say, if you were playing, that's something we need to get cameras out too.
No, well, Jess has already said to me, another 6 years I'll be out there running.
Very good.
But no way, I wouldn't be able to keep up with those guys. The surface is holding up pretty well though, mate.
Yep.
Speaking of, when are you going to have a run in the Masters, mate?
I'm not old enough yet, mate.
Oh, okay.
What's the age?
35 and over.
Let's just keep continuing because actually I'm old enough.
Yeah. So the ground is holding up beautifully despite all the rain that's been taking place there. So that's going to be a good, hard, fast track.
Yep.
And probably expect Broadford to continue on their form. We saw Woodend Heskett, I should say, on the weekend. And they weren't as impressive as what they should have been. The result, they lost to Romsey by 8 goals. On paper going before the game, we thought if there's one game you've got to toss the coin to
which is what we spoke about last week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the one, and it was started that way, and then once Romsey got their run on, they kicked 6 unanswered goals in the second term and ran away with the game.
Oh, well done to that one. Who are you tipping in this one, mate? Woodend or Broadford?
Going to have to go for Broadford, unfortunately, being a Woodend boy growing up, but it's great to see Broadford back in the hunt, and they're really purring at the moment. They're pumped up. How do you think they're travelling now? They're
travelling along much better, obviously. Now, when we spoke about them early doors, we were looking like it was going to be trouble, but they've got their back into gear, so to speak. They've got that team up and running at the moment. They may struggle with player points to get everybody that they want in the one team at the one time, but that's how footy is these days. So it's something that's got to go into consideration. But there's some teams that will be looking over their shoulder and kind of looking at when they're playing Broadford in the fixture at the moment, which is a great sign for Skip Bray and Dean Helmers and the boys.
I remember at the start of the year when we saw them lose a couple of games, we were even scratching our heads looking at lineup going, what on earth is happening there? On? So, but maybe they've got to all go in their favour now, and they'll embrace it more on Saturday afternoon at the GGO.
They will indeed. Melton Central's taking on Rupertswood behind us here at Arnold's Creek on the weekend. Another big test for Glenn Hopkins and the Melton Central's boys against a good Rupo side.
Yeah, this ground is obviously one of the biggest in the competition, if not the biggest, so the Centrals will probably be more at advantage there. So hopefully they can sort of balance the ledger a little bit. Their confidence would be a little bit down from last weekend, a game where they probably would have expected to be competitive in. Rupert's would have flying on the road for the second week in a row, and they seem to be ticking the boxes, just sharing the ball around and giving plenty of avenues to go.
And with the way they run the football too, they won't mind a big ground at all, Rupo. So it's the college for me in this one.
Yep, likewise, mate.
Rupo to win that. Romsey taking on Rockbank at Romsey Park this weekend. Could be a little bit closer than last week, obviously. I don't quite think there'll be a 48-goal blowout this week, but you'd think Romsey are going pretty warm favourites.
Definitely. I think the concerning part of the ground, we were talking about it over the weekend, is that Romsey as a club were hosting 9 senior games in 3 weeks. So the ground was very, very heavy underfoot after the senior game, particularly once the dust sort of settled. But it wasn't too slippery on the surface. The ball was still a little bit sticky. So that's going to reduce the goal flow, I think. Course. And who knows, it might just back in the game a little bit.
We saw it in other leagues on the weekend where you get on a sticky ground and there's all of a sudden bottom teams beating premiership contenders and everything like that. So it can definitely happen. It's not outside the realms of possibility, and we wish the Rockbank boys all the very best of luck with it, because heaven knows they need a bit of a change of luck at the moment.
Exactly, and this is going to be the game for them, really. We know Gab's a very good friend of ours, as used to many in the competition, and he's going to be looking at these conditions going, okay, well, it's game on now, because there's a lot of rain that's going to hit during the week. I know the boys are going to stay off it, but it's still quite heavy underfoot, and there are a few issues there, but it'll sort itself out.
Yeah, so if you're living up in Romsey, you know a bloke named Noah, you might want to borrow his ark for the weekend as well. Wallen taking on Diggers Rest at Green Hill Reserve. Interesting game, obviously. We spoke about Wallen before, their struggles away from home. At home, they've been A1, they've been tip-top, but they're coming up against Diggers Rest side that are undefeated, that are coming off of 350-point win or something, and they're going just a little bit nicely.
Yeah, it would be different if, say, Burrows got up maybe by 20 goals. Yeah. I mean, then it'd start to look the other way a little bit, but a team that's coming off a 48-goal win, then,
Match of the round this weekend by the absolute length of the straight. Macedon taking on Riddell at the Tony Clark Reserve. What a game this is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's been played at Tony Clark Reserve is exceptional. because in my time of calling footy, we've seen 2 games there over the journey. Well, we've seen a number of Macedon Riddell games, but we have seen Macedon's last few wins over Riddell at that particular ground by 2 points. Coincidentally as well, so a good rivalry there that's been going on for a number of years, and it's going to be a cracking game. It's going to be a tough one. The Bombers are coming off a really good win, and well, from all reports, the Cats did it with great confidence against Sunbury Kangaroos.
Yep.
So, which do you think the Bombers will
It's interesting because Riddell always bring their A game, and you get them onto a good track like Tony Clark Reserve will be, and they run. As we said before, it's tough for oppositions to contain Brian Ruffle and James Nolan when they're both up and running at the same time. That being said, Matt Knox is the same, obviously, for Macedon. You get him up and going. They've got to find a ruckman to stop Tommy Waters' influence in the ruck as well. So whether Nolan plays in the ruck and they try to put him head-to-head with Tommy, and depending on which way it goes, it's going to be fairly fascinating just to see the matchups and how the two coaches obviously play against each other off the field as well.
Absolutely. I think a big interesting point will be is on the day is how the ground's going to hold up after 2 games, because as we said, like it could be dry anywhere else, but at Macedon it'll be raining in some capacity.
Yep.
So the ground does tend to get a little bit heavy underfoot, and it has over the past few weeks when there has been rain about. So with that being said, does your Ruffles and Nolans, do they sort of, their influence in the game sort of get more minimalised?
Yeah. Who are you tipping?
I'll probably have to go for the Cats in this one. I think that there's no reason to tip against them, I find, at this stage, until they drop one, and then you said.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. They haven't given us a reason to tip against them yet this year, Macedon. So why should we start now, even though I'm nervy with it? I'm a little bit nervy because I know when Riddle are on song how good a side they are.
Absolutely. And an exciting part about this is the way the results are going to go. If Macedon do get up, then we've got the dream matchup for round 10. It'll be a battle for the 2 undefeated sides, and that is going to be mouth-watering.
Certainly will, but before we look at that, there is one more game to look at this week, and it's going to be a pretty important one as well, as the Sunbury Kangaroos take on Lancefield at Eric Boardman Reserve, and this could very well be 2 sides fighting for one spot in the final 6 at the end of the year.
Definitely, and Lancefield confidence has sort of been a bit shot in recent weeks, but saying that, the Sunbury Kangaroos have been in the same boat, but they are still very, very hard to beat at home, and I think that home ground advantage always plays in their favour. A nice, fast deck, which is what they get. Lancefield's traditionally a little bit heavier, so they tend to adapt.
You're going to get the heavier conditions on this weekend, though. John Kent could put money on him not being held goalless 2 weeks in a row. I don't mind Lancefield in this one.
Yeah, I think they'll be sort of ranked outside favourites. Very, very big possibility there. I'll probably just go Sunbury Kangaroos with experience. I'm almost going to toe the Broadford line. I look at Sunbury Kangaroos lineup and go, well, why aren't they winning more games than what they've shown on paper? And for me, that'll be a big question mark. And maybe they'll turn it around and maybe win 3 or 4, even 5 to close out the year.
Could be. Lots of questions. All the answers, of course, will be seen on a football ground and a netball court near you this Saturday afternoon. Yeendy, thanks for joining us once again, mate. Always a pleasure having you in.
Always a pleasure being in your company, mate.
Give it a plug, mate. Highlands FM, where are you?
Well, there's only one match going on in town.
Thought that'd be it. Macedon v Riddell.
Yep, can't wait.
Very good work indeed. And thanks to you for joining us as well on the RDFL Footy Show. It's been a pleasure having you with us. We'll see you again next week.